Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host today, and we have a lot to talk about. You know, we just had Congressman Sessions, or rather Senator Sessions, Pete Sessions, say that Obama is begging to be impeached because of what's going on at the border. Well, he's been begging to be impeached over many different issues. We now have a faux congressman, Eleanor Holmes Norton, a non-voting member of the Congress from the District of Columbia, where they don't have Congress people. She's saying that we don't have a right to know what's going on because in our form of government, that doesn't happen. Well, maybe that's the way it's going to be in our new form of government. So we've got the Obama administration signaling that they're going to take executive action on the border on immigration, and actually came out and said, this is Dan Pfeiffer, who has been with the Obama White House since the very beginning. He said, the president acting on immigration reform will certainly up the likelihood that the Republicans will contemplate impeachment at some point. Yeah, they're kind of laying that out there, begging for that to happen. Yet, is this, in this chess game, is this something that we should just wink an eye at and say, well, that's fine, we don't want to rock the boat before the elections, or do we stand on principle? Now, Sessions is saying he wants you to light up the phone lines at the Congress, at the Senate, at the congressional delegations for your congressman. He wants you to call them and melt it down. We want you to call in today and let us know what you think about that, what you think about is going on at the border. We're going to have some clips from our reporters down at the border. Joe Biggs is down there with cameramen. They're taking a look at the border. It's pretty amazing to see exactly what this fence looks like. Is that the way we stop this? Do we build a fence? Do we send the military? Do we increase border patrols there? Do we militarize the border patrol? What's the right way to tackle this? We want your opinions on this as well. I've got some ideas. We're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about some major court victories for the Second Amendment, as well as an illustration of what happens in the same situation, 2 years apart, two shootings, both in Pennsylvania, both in a psychiatric ward. A patient comes in and starts shooting people, but two very different results based on whether or not people have concealed carry or not. And it also raises a question as to what's going to happen to someone who defends himself and defends other people when it is prohibited to have concealed carry in that area. Now, we also have a court decision that's come down in Washington, D.C., and that's a very important decision there, and it illustrates a lot there. The District of Columbia, just like Chicago, has done everything they can to prohibit the exercise of the Second Amendment. And we need to understand that if you're allowed to technically have guns, but you've got to keep them locked up at home all the time, that is what is an infringement by definition in the Second Amendment. If you're not allowed to use your guns, that is an infringement. And of course, it's not just an outright ban on taking them out of your home. There's a lot of different ways that the Second Amendment, that your fundamental right that transcends our governments, that transcends the Constitution, that our governments and our Constitution were created to protect those rights that we have from God, our right of self-defense, whether that is from criminals breaking into our home or from a criminal government. Those rights come from God, and they were recognized in the Second Amendment, not created by the Second Amendment. And when the government infringes those, we need to do something about that. Now, we've got a judge that agreed with that today in a D.C. case. It's Palmer versus District of Columbia. Remember, it was back in 2008 that it was Heller versus D.C., where they essentially said that you could own guns. They had outright prohibited guns up to that point, and they finally said, no, you can own guns. But then they so restricted it that you didn't effectively have any rights at all. Well, this is a 5-year battle that is just concluded with a federal judge saying, yes, you can carry guns.
City of Austin tap water versus filtered City of Austin tap water.
I can taste dirt in it.
God knows what's in this.
This has an aftertaste.
Tastes like Austin water? Yeah, it does. Ugh.
These people just sampled City of Austin tap water straight from the faucet. Next, we had them try a sample of tap water filtered through the ProPure G2.0 filtration system.
High quality H2O.
That one is better.
Tastes like nothing.
Yep, I know what good water tastes like. It's good water.
Most tap water contains added substances like fluoride, chlorine, Monsanto's deadly pesticide, glyphosate, and many others. Studies prove that these substances are linked to an assortment of major health issues, including tooth decay, lowered IQ, and even cancer.
It tastes like you're drinking out of the lake when you're drinking tap water.
Yeah, it has that processed flavor to it.
The ProPure G2.0 filtration system removes these deadly substances and many more, leaving only fresh-tasting, deliciously clean water.
Okay, this is very tasty.
It's good water.
Refreshing.
It's good.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com today. Use promo code WATER and save 10% off your ProPure purchase. Again, that's InfoWarsStore.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host for today on this Sunday, July 27th, 2014. Now, as I was just saying in the last segment, things are beginning to come to a head on a lot of different fronts. Of course, the crisis that is happening at the border. Now they're sending signals that they're going to use executive orders. What a surprise. That's something we have seen over and over again from Obama. Clearly does not have any respect whatsoever for the Congress, for a division of power, for the rule of law. He rules by fiat. And we've got Congressman Stockman who went down to the border with WorldNet Daily, and they got the same receipt down there that we got when we went down with our crew. Basically, they went to a facility, wanted to take pictures of it. People came out and started questioning them, wouldn't let them in. And then when they drove around the Rio Grande Valley, taking a look at what was happening late at night, because that's when the action really happens, they were being followed by the Border Patrol. So the Border Patrol focuses on reporters. They focus on congressmen. What they don't focus on are the people coming across the border. And as our reporter Joe Biggs is now down at the border with evidence of how these fences, in the areas where they do have fences, how these fences are being cut open. I don't think that's happening with little children who are coming across the border. There's a whole different dynamic here than is being portrayed in the media, being portrayed by the White House. It is not simply a humanitarian crisis of a lot of little children who are marching across Central and South America to come to our borders. But now the Obama administration is signaling that they're going to use executive orders, that they're going to do it before the midterm elections in November. At the same time, we've got Pete Sessions, a senator from Alabama, saying Obama is begging to be impeached, and or rather, that's the Stockman who's saying that. Sessions is saying we need to do something about this, or they're going to give amnesty to 3, 4, 5 million people. And of course, he's quoting another congressman, Luis Gutierrez, who says exactly the same thing, that he wants to see that happen with executive order. Meanwhile, on the transparency issue, we've got Eleanor Holmes Norton saying that we don't really need to know what's going on, what's going to be coming down the pike. This is what she had to say in an amazing statement this last, I think it was just yesterday she said this, but she was saying that you don't need to know what's going on in your government.
You don't have a right to know everything in a separation of powers government, my friend. That is the difference between a parliamentary government and a separation of powers government.
Really? That's the difference between parliamentary government and a separation of powers government? I guess you could ask the people in the UK if they feel like they've got that kind of transparency. I think they've got the same kind of surveillance problems, the same kind of closed government that we have. We see that happening in all of the Western democracies now, saying that you don't have a right to know what's going on. Now, this is not something that began with the Obama administration, of course. This really started doubling down during the Bush administration in the aftermath of 9/11. And when Obama ran, he said he was going to do something different. He didn't say that this was our form of government, just as she just said. He said this.
When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it.
No, that didn't happen, did it?
So that you know what your government's doing.
Now, we got an article up on Infowars.com today. The U.S. wants to criminalize movie and music streaming. Now, this is just another reincarnation of SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, CISPA. We see this coming again and again and again. But when he says you're going to know all the legislation in advance, you're going to be able to see who's benefiting from this and who isn't, What about the Trans-Pacific Partnership that has been negotiated throughout his administration, started in his administration, the negotiations? That's being done in secret by corporate lobbyists, and they are going to incorporate the aspects of SOPA, PIPA, CISPA, all these failed measures to try to enact surveillance and web control via copyright administration. See, that's the beard on it. And actually, there will be some usefulness to the movie and music businesses. They're driving this, but it's going to be used for a lot more than that. If you give them the power, you will not have your day in court. You will just have your website taken down, or you'll be banned from the internet merely by accusation. They're not going to give you due process. They're not actually going to give you a day in court. They're just going to be able to immediately shut down a website based on accusation. And this is what's being negotiated in secret by the TPP. Now, Obama has sent his trade representative down there with fast-track capability, and we are not allowed to know what's happening there. Not even senators and congressmen are allowed to know what's going on in these bills. It's kept totally secret from everyone. There is no transparency whatsoever. Now, as we look at this, and I want to get your take on this, because we said that that Senator Sessions wants people to call in and melt down the phone lines of the House and the Senate. We want you to let us know what you think about impeachment. Tell us what you think about what's going on at the border. What's really behind this? How do we control this? I want to go down. I want to show you what's happening at the border, and I want to get your take on this. Is it something that we can address simply by force, or is there another way that we address this? What is driving this? What is pushing people from that area? What is pulling them in? What is attracting them? The number, if you want to call in, is 877-789-2539. That's 877-789-2539, or that's Alex, 789-ALEX, 877-789-ALEX, if you want to remember it that way if you're driving in your car. Now, there was an article that was up on the Drudge Report yesterday from Paul Joseph Watson. DARPA wants new technology to predict societal unrest. And as we look at what's happening at the border, as we look at what's happening with our economy, as we look at the implications of this massive immigration, this massive amnesty, and also what's going on with the drug war and the international drug gangs that are coming across, I have to ask if this is about predicting societal unrest that DARPA wants to do, or is it creating it? Certainly, they want to know how you're going to react, and there's been a lot of research projects along that line. As Paul Joseph Watson points out, it's now DARPA. Those are the people who are always doing the really dark research. They're soliciting companies to provide new technology that would allow the Department of Defense to predict future societal unrest by keeping track of, quote, all human activities that can be measured. Now, they point out, and this is a solicitation on FedBiz Ops, they point out that this is going to be game-changing technologies. It will provide information advantage to the U.S. and its allies in powerful ways. They will gain insight into the world that will have mercantile and military implications. Now, when they say mercantile, they're talking about helping their favored corporations as well. And it's that kind of corporate espionage that this is being used for, as well as the dragnet surveillance of its citizens that is causing so much protest, not only in America, but especially in Europe. It's why many European countries and governments are now moving away from American computer businesses and software companies.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on this Sunday, July 27th, 2014. Now, we've been talking about what's going on at the border. Of course, there's so many crises to choose from in the Obama administration, so many different things that he could be impeached for. Certainly going after entire political movements, using the IRS to go after them, and then covering it up. See, that's the key thing. It was the cover-up that took down Nixon. And that's the cover-up that should take down Obama. But, of course, then there's the executive orders to just give amnesty to millions of people. That's what they're talking about right now. So the question is this just gross incompetence, or is this a planned takedown of America? Now, in 2009, there was a New York Times op-ed piece where they basically said, is Obama a chess master? And they made the case that, yes, they thought he was. Now, just today, a real chess master, Garry Kasparov, tweeted out, allow me to disagree. Now, I think he was talking about Obama's foreign policy in the Ukraine and Russia. But the reality of it is that I think there is evidence to show that this is something, at least if Obama is not orchestrating it, it's certainly the powers that put him in office. Think about what's happening here. Think about just with the border, the many different facets of this. It really is a masterstroke of tyranny. They want to implode the country economically by exponential expansion of the entitlements. This is a Cloward and Piven strategy that we've talked about many times. The fact that you put all these entitlements out there, and of course, we've just had the largest increase in entitlements in my lifetime, and that was Obamacare. As they put Obamacare out there, and then they bring in millions of people, as well as the other entitlement programs, that's an effort to overload the system. And of course, even if we just paid for the education of the children that are coming in, that would basically take most jurisdictions underwater. But it's not just imploding the country economically. He's also going to explode the country with violence, because it's not children merely that are coming across. And many of the children who are coming across are gang members, 15, 16, 17 years old, still minors. But as we've seen and talked about here on the radio program here in the Alex Jones Show many times, we've got baby Zetas, we've got MS-13 gang members who are minors involved in kidnapping, involved in murder and torture, mutilation, making videos of it, even after they get the ransom, still killing the victims and taking video of it and putting it out there. So that is not really the kind of image that they're putting out there in the mainstream media, saying this is just children that are making this long trek across. Certainly those gang members can make the trek across, and we know that is happening. And so we've got a war on drugs that is escalating violence here in the United States, that has essentially decimated those countries, along with the economic policies, the rent-seeking policies of the IMF, going all the way back to Robert McNamara. For decades, they've been putting these countries into debt to the banks to pay for increased welfare states. They weren't building infrastructure in those countries. They were getting them to go into debt to pay for a welfare state. And as everybody said, you're getting into a rent-seeking status. In other words, you don't want anybody to own anything. You want everybody to rent everything from you. And that is what the big banks and the multinational corporations want to do. They want to stop all private ownership of everything. So we have communism on the bottom, but it's essentially an economic fascism on top. Think about what else he's doing. He's not just imploding the country economically, getting ready to explode it with violence as we bring in more of these international gang members who will then go into competition with the gangs that are already in our countries, already creating a lot of violence, prohibition style in our countries. He's also going to divide the country demographically. He wants to control a large new voting bloc of voters. He's going to do it with amnesty, and they want to make sure that nobody IDs anyone at the voting polls, because, of course, that would be racist. Now, you can't cash a check. You can't get a drink in most bars. You can't drive a car. You can't do so many things without having an ID. We're constantly getting stopped as if we were in Nazi Germany, demanding IDs from us by the police, even when we're not trying to engage in something. But when we try to engage in something for which we should have some control and know if these people are legitimate voters, that's racist. That's racist to require ID from everybody. So they're trying to divide the country demographically, and he's trying to erase the rule of law with executive orders. Now, I want you to hear what Barack Obama said back in 2007 and 2008. Here's a few clips.
There's been a tendency on the part of this administration to try to hide behind executive privilege every time there's something a little shaky that's taking place. And I think, the administration would be best served by coming clean on this.
It's not actually true that the Patriot Act was the worst. Most of the problems that we have had in civil liberties were not done through the Patriot Act. They were done through executive order by George W. Bush.
He knows what the Constitution is. He certainly knows what it is. It isn't that he doesn't know. It isn't that he's incompetent. He's thumbing his nose at the Constitution. He, more than anyone else, has bragged about how he's going to use executive orders because he just doesn't want to wait for Congress. He could care less what Congress does, and Congress sheepishly takes a back seat to him and doesn't do anything. And so the question is, should they impeach them? That's what we want to talk to you about, but I want to play you now this clip that just came out from Luis Gutierrez. This is the same guy who just a few days ago was recorded talking to La Raza and said, we're going to get amnesty so we can punish these Americans who don't want to allow illegal immigration. Here's what he had to say.
I'm going over to the White House. I'll be meeting with Jay Johnson and the chief legal counsel to the President of the United States. We're going to sit down and we're going to negotiate additional terms and avenues the President can use in prosecutorial discretion. And I think we can get 3 or 4, maybe even 5 million people.
Okay, so we're constantly hearing that we need to have immigration reform, but the Republican line is, of course, we need to secure the border before we have immigration reform, and then presumably we can just grant amnesty to everyone and put them right on the welfare rolls. Well, how is that border working out? Well, we sent our InfoWars crew team down there to take a look at it. We've got Joe Biggs down there. He's been flying over the border, taking aerial shots of it, as well as going up and down the border, and there's some pretty amazing stuff. I want to play you a couple of short clips here. We've got 3 short clips I'd like to play of Joe down there looking at various aspects of really what does this border fence look like. Here's the first clip.
We are now 100 yards up the fence from where we were just at a second ago, where you saw the wide parts open. Now look. This is an area that has been cut down by the cartels. It was just repaired on 3/14/14, and it was cut open by the cartels on 10/29/13. Now let me show you real quick what happens. Write that down on
the grid right there.
What they do is there's a smuggling route right back here. A truck can get through.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Joe Biggs has been filing reports, walking up and down the border, flying over it, showing you exactly what the border looks like in Arizona, exactly how they're coming through. And, of course, it ranges from being very easy to get through to areas where you've got drug cartels essentially using acetylene torches to cut through. So it's all over the place. I want to get your take on what we do to control the collapsing border situation, to control the economy that is going to be collapsing once we bring all these people in, give them amnesty, as Luis Gutierrez has said. Obama is going to use executive orders to grant amnesty to 3, 4, 5 million people, according to him. Now, we also have Steve Stockman, who went to the border and said Obama is begging to be impeached. Now, he went down with a WorldNet Daily crew to the Rio Grande Valley on Friday night, and they did essentially the same thing. They tried to talk to Border Control agents there who refused to talk to them and then started trailing them, just like they did our crew when we went down there. Stockman said, Obama wants us to impeach him now before the midterm election because his senior advisors believe that's the only chance the Democratic Party has to avoid a major electoral defeat. Evidently, Obama believes impeachment could motivate the Democrat Party to come out and vote. Now, we see the similar thing coming from someone who's been with the Obama administration since the very beginning, that is Dan Pfeiffer. And he said the president, acting on immigration reform, will certainly up the likelihood that Republicans would contemplate impeachment at some point, because he's talking about how they're going to float some reforms, as they call it, some executive orders before the November midterm elections. As a matter of fact, in Time magazine, they bragged about it. They said Obama is eyeing major immigration moves. They said activists met privately with the president and his aides back in June 30th. And Obama suggested even back then that he will act before the November midterm elections. And, of course, we have Senator Pete Sessions saying that we need to melt Congress's phone lines to stop Obama's planned executive action. And, again, he's saying that he's concerned that he's going to grant amnesty to 3 to 5 million people, just as Gutierrez has said. He says it would be wrong for any member of the House or Senate to support any border crisis bill that doesn't end DACA. That's the DREAM Act, essentially the amnesty for the younger children. That's what's drawing them in, I believe. And so the question is, should they stand on principle? They're going to lose if they try to impeach him before the elections. Or should they just give him a pass in a kind of a cynical political move? Now, before I take your calls, I want to go back and play the rest of this video that we had. It's fairly short. I got 2 more short videos of Joe Biggs down at the border. Now, what we had just played, he was walking along showing some steel girders that were up vertically. I'll describe this because this is predominantly a radio show. People can watch this video feed on our website. But if you're listening on the radio, what they had were girders, steel girders going up, and then steel cross-hatching between that. He said they just cut through with an acetylene torch. And the Border Patrol goes along and writes on the girders when it was cut and when they repaired it. Now, here's what else he had to say.
What they do is there's a smuggling route right back here. A truck can get through. They drive up here, and they bring acetylene gas torches up here. They cut through this huge fence right here, make it big enough for the truck to get through. They cut through these I-beams with a torch and then take that down. And then what they have is a complete open route into our country to smuggle drugs. This is not by accident. This is designed by the Obama administration. And not only just them, our entire government as a whole has a hand in this. The Fast and Furious, all these things are happening. We make money getting their drugs. We sell them weapons. This is a huge issue that needs to be looked at. It's not just the illegals coming through. It's the drugs flooding our borders to help dumb our people down, essentially. I mean, this is a mind-blowing thing that's happening out here, and we just need more people in America to care about this and watch what's going on and do something about it. I'm Joe Biggs.
We're told that they have the border under control, that they have a fence, that we don't need to worry about that. And, of course, the GOP says we can have immigration reform as long as we've got the border controlled. But I want you to take a look at some. Have you guys got the next clip queued up yet? Okay, let's go with that. Let's go. This is the border fence as a multi-billion-dollar facade. Here's Joe Biggs again.
I'm Joe Biggs with Infowars.com in Cochise County, Arizona, with Glenn Spencer. Now, we are right on the border, as you can see. From what Glenn told me a second ago, they spend about $3 million every mile or so to build this fence, and yet they have left this completely wide open. Now, tell me why this happens.
Well, we're known for monsoons between really July, August, September. We have heavy rain.
Pause it there for a second. I want to describe this for the people who are listening on the radio. So what you see there is a fence that costs $3 million per mile to build, a very heavy metal fence. And what they've done is just lifted it straight up, and all that remains on the bottom part is about 3 strands of barbed wire that are running across there, kind of like a cattle fence, let's say. Go ahead, continue.
What they've done here, because this is a wash, this is a low spot, what they've done is they've cut the holes in the fence and put in these gates and raised them up so the water can come through. Now, these are up, I don't know, usually 2 or 3 months out of the year. As you can see, you could just walk right through.
$3 million was spent on this section, and it is completely left wide open. I mean, right here, they have a lock, and you can tell that someone goes through the trouble to bring a crane out here, not a crane, but a forklift, lift these up and lock these completely in. Yeah, and it's as easy as walking in.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't even have to.
Footprints over here.
Pause it there. They don't even have to. They show the footprints on the other side. They don't even have to cut the barbed wire, because it's got a spacing between it that you could just kind of duck through that thing and just walk right through. Let's go to Randy in Texas. Randy, what do you think about this? What do you think about impeachment? What do you think about the border situation?
Yeah, I think that Obama wants to be impeached, because if we start impeachment against him, then that's going to energize the Democratic base to come out and vote in the midterm elections.
That's right. But what do? Do we just give him a pass on all these different things that he's done? I mean, there's got to be something there that we could get bipartisan support on, where he has transgressed the rule of law, transgressed the Constitution. I mean, couldn't we impeach him on the civil liberties issue, for example, on the NDAA? There are a lot of people in the Democrat Party that understand how bad that is. And if you remember at the beginning of the program, when I was playing those quotes from Obama back in 2007, 2008, he was talking about how bad the Patriot Act was. Well, it is bad. he's put it on steroids. And he pointed out that the worst stuff that was in there were executive orders. Well, he's done the same sort of things. He's done drone killings. He's killed an American citizen and that American citizen's son who wasn't even accused of anything with targeted drone assassinations. Isn't that something that we could impeach him for and get support from the left as well as from the right?
Yes, we'd have to be careful on what we would impeach him on because automatically the propaganda wing of the White House, MSNBC, would say that, the only reason that they're wanting to impeach him is because they're a bunch of racist Tea Party people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have to pick which things we do very carefully because if we pick something that is a standard Republican issue, then they're just going to dismiss it as partisan politics. The problem is that what should be bipartisan issues, the things like the targeted drone assassinations, the things like the NSA dragnet spying, those things are things that the Republicans want to do. They would love to do that. They don't care about civil liberties. So it's very hard to build a bipartisan coalition to stop criminal executive actions, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm afraid that if we do try to go ahead and impeach him, it's just going to play into his hands. I think that the best thing to do is to go ahead and try to impeach him on any executive action he takes on immigration.
Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?
David Knight, and we're taking your calls. We're talking about impeachment. And of course, on Friday, we had an article on Infowars.com that 1/3 of Americans would like to see Obama impeached. Now, it was 57% of Republicans, even 14% of Democrats wanted him impeached. And of course, 45% of the people who wanted him impeached said that he sought to expand the presidency too much. And of course, that would be things like the executive order. Now there's talk that there's going to be an executive order before the election. Guterres, who was at La Raza, saying that we needed to grant amnesty to the illegals here so that we could punish the Americans who want to throw them out. He's saying that he thinks that Obama could grant amnesty to anywhere between 3, 4, 5 million people. To which Senator Pete Sessions says we need to melt Congress's phone lines to stop Obama's planned executive amnesty. And we also have Steve Stockman, who was at the border with a film crew this weekend, saying that Obama is begging to be impeached. So we want to ask you, what should he be impeached? If so, what should he be impeached for? And of course, we're focused right now, too, on the border situation, because what's happening at the border is something where we've got the possibility of the economy being imploded by a rapid expansion of the welfare state. We've got violence that can explode because they're bringing in or allowing in gang members, many of them these children that we're being told about, minors. But of course, the DREAM Act applies to anyone that is up to 31 years of age. So that's pretty expansive in terms of children, in terms of minors. But of course, it also has the potential to divide the country, as Luis Guterres would like to see, to create these competing factions, to create a new voting bloc just by fiat, by amnesty, by executive order. And of course, these executive orders will erase the rule of law. So I'm going to go to your comments, and I want to take your phone calls on this. But before I do, we need to take care of a little bit of business here. One of the things that we have been able to do since I've been here, I've seen the magazine come online, top quality magazine that Alex puts out there. We've got a new studio where we're going to be taking the nightly news into a broader audience. When Alex does stuff and when he reinvests the money that you send us, when you buy our products, when you support this organization, when he does these things, he does first quality stuff, and he is reinvesting the money that we get from the products that we sell. He also tries to put out the very best quality in terms of the products that he sells, especially the health products, because we understand how your health is being impacted by the additives that are put into the food, by the things, GMO, high fructose corn syrup, the many additives that go in. How do you detox? Well, one of the ways that you can detox is with Fluoride Shield. That's a chelating detox, and we have that now at 25% off. We also have X2. That's the pure nascent iodine. If you get those two together, we have a super detox special, 30% off. We also now have back in stock. It was back ordered for a while. After 2.5 months, we've got Silver Bullet back in stock at the current rate that's going, though. It'll probably be out within the week, and it's going to take us a while to get that back in. That is $19.95. You can get all that stuff at InfoWarsLife.com, 888-253-3139. That's 888-253-3139, InfoWarsLife.com. That's what keeps the organization going. We don't get money from the government, certainly, and we don't have any corporate big daddies. It's you supporting us, you helping yourselves. It's a win-win situation. You've helped us to build this media organization. I can tell you from the time that I've been here that Alex is being a good steward with your money, reinvesting it in things that are going to make a difference. Let's go to your calls right now. Let's take Joe in Arkansas. Joe, what do you think about the border situation? What do you think about impeachment?
Yeah, well, impeachment is what I called about. And I think that if the Republicans hope to have any chance of winning back the Senate and the House this November election, they better start making a real serious effort at impeachment right now, because I think that's about the only thing that's going to give any good, responsible, patriotic American any motivation to vote for the Republicans. And as for what they should impeach him for, I think some good congressmen, some good patriotic congressmen ought to draw up a list of about half a dozen issues, high crimes and misdemeanors which Obama has committed, along with good supporting factual evidence, for each one. And at least about half of them, I think your idea of trying to impeach him for bipartisan issues is an extremely good idea. And then this congressman should publish this list and ask people, all over the country to call your congressmen, call your senators, tell them that you want Obama impeached for these reasons. Try to enlist the support of the public. Melt down the phone lines of Congress trying to get congressmen and senators to support impeachment. That's what I think they ought to do.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. I don't think that they're going to pay much attention to us if we call and melt down their phone lines and say we don't want executive orders. I think that the GOP needs to energize its base. And, of course, they're out there saying, oh, we don't want to do that because if we impeach Obama, it's going to energize the Democrat base. Well, as you pointed out very, very smartly, if they don't do this, it's the GOP base that's not going to be energized, because we're going to look at this and we're going to say these guys give him a pass no matter what he does, no matter how many times he breaks the law. I think that's very important. Thank you, Joe in Arkansas. Let's go to Marlene in Michigan. Marlene. I think it's Marlene in Michigan.
Marlene, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
What's going on, man? Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, as far as the impeachment thing goes, I mean, I definitely think that they should do it, but my only issue with it is that if you're going to have a Daryl Issa and an Elijah Cummings show, then don't do it at all. Because I feel like, the IRS situation is something they should have been buried with a long time ago.
Yes.
But because of the way it's been handled, I can honestly see an impeachment situation being something similar, and it'd just be a fiasco that'll basically go into the face of everybody that want to have him impeached.
Well, Marlon, I think that's exactly why they need to do it, is because we've seen them come up and just use this in kind of a limp-wristed way to essentially just score some political points and not really do anything about it. We've seen what's happening with the IRS, and Daryl Issa keeps coming up and saying, well, we're really going to do something if you don't come forward with these records, or we're very upset about how you've broken the law here or what you've done over here, but they don't follow through and actually do anything. And I think that is why it's imperative for the GOP to show that it actually has a backbone, that it'll actually stand up and do something. Otherwise, why do we need to have a majority of GOP there?
Oh, I definitely agree with that. And I just want to add one more thing, too, is that I feel like with this whole amnesty thing, I mean, people will be talking about that they don't want to, energize the Democratic base. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. But my thing is that the country is basically broken up into two sections. I mean, you're going to have people who are going to vote Democrat or Republican. But here's my only issue is that with him talking about the amnesty, and they only talking about 4 or 5 million, in my eyes, I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing more like 10 or 11 million people, because they talk about the undocumented people,
right,
plus the people that's coming over. And I'm adding up 11, 12 million. That is your vote right there. It doesn't matter how much you energize a Democrat. A Democrat's going to vote Democrat. They're not going to vote Republican. You cannot do anything to change that opinion.
That's
they're
right.
Come out, they're going to vote.
That's right. And when you look when you look at how few people actually vote in an election anyway. Now, of course, we're all assuming that these are legitimate elections. That's another argument that we need to have. And it's not just voter ID. I mean, that's part of it. But it's also maintaining custody of the votes, make sure that they're going to be counted correctly, that they're going to be reported correctly. We've talked about this. There's a whole chain of custody with the vote. It starts with correct voter ID, but when you look at the number of people that presumably vote in these elections, you're only looking at a few million people. There's a very small percentage of the population that actually participates in the elections. So when you bring in a block of 5-10 million people, maybe more, we don't know what these numbers are, that's going to radically alter everything. And of course, if we allow these people to come in and stay, put them on the welfare roll, we don't do any voter ID, you don't have to have amnesty for them to be able to vote. Thank you. Let's go to Margaret in North Dakota. You wanted to talk about immigration and mainstream media's approach to that. Go ahead, Margaret. Oh, I think we're about out of time, and I don't think she's still on the line. We're going to be right back with your calls. And, of course, the question is, are we going to allow the government to are we going to allow Obama to just follow through with his executive orders, have blanket amnesty, or is the GOP going to try to energize its base? Are we going to have an effective clash of ideas, or are we just going to sit back and let Obama do anything he wants? I think even if you lose this fight, it's a fight you need to have because you have to stand for principle. You have to stand for the rule of law. We're
Alex Jones here for Infowars.com. We're going to be intensifying our efforts to awaken free humanity to the scourge of the globalist in the month of July. And starting this July 4th, we are going to slash prices in a celebration of true Americana, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence on all of the Made in America products that you will find at madein1776.com or InfoWarsStore.com. We're talking about Made in America belt buckles in brass and nickeled brass that state it loud and proud. Molon Labe. That's why we have the best-selling Made in America men's and women's Molon Labe Infowars.com shirts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a win-win. You vote with your dollars. You support the most hardcore organization out there for promoting true ideas of libertarianism, constitutionalism, basic human empowerment. But more importantly, you get T-shirts and belt buckles so you can meet like-minded people. So you have a conversation starter with friends and family and coworkers. We are reaching out to each other. And you also throw it in the face of the anti-gunners and the rest of the parasites out there that you're a free man and woman, and that you're not going to be a slave, that you're not going to be intimidated to shut up by their tyranny that they call political correctness. That's why in the month of July, we have got giant specials on everything at madein1776.com. But to expand the InfoWar, we're offering the biggest special in the history, 13 years of PrisonPlanet.tv, our multimedia platform. We're offering the equivalent of more than 5 months free right now when you get a membership at PrisonPlanet.tv, and you get 11 memberships that can be used with the same username and passcode so you can share it with friends and family. Now is the time to fund the war bonds. Now is the time to fund the InfoWar. Now is the time to get aggressive. Now is the time to double down. Now is the time to realize you are the people that made the InfoWar so successful and one of the leading lights worldwide against tyranny. You don't stand behind us, you stand right beside us, and I salute all of you on this July 4th, 2014, and going forward in the month of July and onward. This is about freedom worldwide and that desire for human dignity and self-determination that beats in the human breast. We are brothers and sisters together in the true spirit of liberty and the animating contest of liberty. And so I quote in closing the great Thomas Jefferson that I have sworn on the altar of God resistance against every form of tyranny. And never forget, if you are watching or listening to this transmission, you are the resistance.